If Putin decides to starve the EU, you might have to starve as well. If you thought something happening over there won't affect you, you haven't been paying attention to history, and you're likely not subscribed, so obviously hit the subscribe button and leave a like to fend off famine. So why would this be the case where you would also have to starve if someone else does? Well, for one, like I said, let's look back at history and everybody's most favorably quoted, cited point in history, World War II. Germany was doing this thing called the Blitz, where they basically heavily and regularly bombed the UK. Thankfully, social media wasn't invented at the time, so the normal people reaction at that time was to go seek shelter, preferably underground. These bombings were so devastating and so frequent that you couldn't do normal activities, like you couldn't produce any goods, such as food. This was the time where the UK developed something called rationing, where they tried to stretch all the available supplies. And the way it worked was that you were given basically a ration card, and every day you would basically get one bread, some cheese, some butter, and some coffee or something like that, right? They'd stamp your card and say, yep, you got your portion for that day. Unfortunately, the fun fact about this was that it was a one-size-solution-fits-all, and let's just say a lot of people didn't meet their nutritional needs for the day. Now, this is the part where the hero of the story, America, stepped in to kind of also, they were kind of doing it at the same time anyways, but they were setting in basically massive supplies, one of them being food. America and FDR didn't do this out of the kindness of their heart. There was also concern whether the UK could actually pay back their debts after the war, and obviously Lend-Lease was brought in to basically make some concessions, build bases in Newfoundland and so forth or whatever, right? On top of already having to pay back their debts. Obviously, this wasn't without risk for the US because German U-boats were very cutting edge at the time in between the two nations, and they basically terrorized and dominated the waters in between. So to answer for this and to counter this, they would send over massive fleets because, they only have so many torpedoes, right? They would send over massive amount of ships with the hopes that some of them would at least reach their allies, the UK, at the time. Now, this might surprise you, but these supplies that they were sending were not too abundant at home at the time in America. And because of this, every American was asked to sacrifice for the common good. And lo and behold, rationing was introduced into the US. You would have a rationing card for basically all your daily groceries and some basic, consumer goods as well. Now that you have a basis, let's fast forward to present day. Putin stated his discontent with the wheat agreement. And if you don't know, this was an agreement made in July where he would allow some of the Ukrainian wheat to come out of the Black Sea if they took some Russian wheat, as well as most of this grain, or a lot of the grain, will go to the poorer countries. He's claiming that only 2 of the 87 ships carrying 60,000 tons of wheat went to the poorer countries, and the rest actually went to Europe. Now, I'm not going to lie, but I don't track maritime ship transponders 24/7, so I can't verify his statement, and he hasn't really provided a source citation for his statement either. But I'm not saying that he's fully lying either, because it's not too far-fetched. Because it's not like, oil tankers don't go out to sea and then turn off their transponders to meet up with another oil tanker to transfer their cargo to get past sanctions. Never underestimate corporate greed and their ingenuity. Anyways, because of this, Putin is expressing dissatisfaction either as a truth, or maybe he's posturing to pull out of the agreement in the future because essentially this is on a 120-day schedule, and the next negotiation date is around the end of November. Again, if Russia pulls out of supplying the world, not just with wheat, but with other things, because of the war, we saw a run on cooking oil over in Europe. And well, I'll let this EU Parliament document speak for itself. Given that the situation is still somewhat preliminary, and that no drastic actions have been taken on either side, thankfully, so far, I'd like to propose a very wild theory. Say that the end of November rolls around, and let's say Putin still feels slighted, but he just, for whatever reason, doesn't renew the agreement or whatever, right? And decides to cut off all the other exports to other foreign nations as well. Given America's past history with the UK, do you think that they would step in to actually aid Europe the way that they did the UK back in the day? I'll leave that up to you to decide and make up your own mind and do your own research, but just remember, just because you're a day trader doesn't mean you have to trade every single day.